And now, here is Coretta McDonald, Member of Parliament and host of Advancing the Cause.
Well, good evening to all of you. I'm hoping that your day was just as awesome as you are, just as beautiful as you are, and that you're looking forward to this evening and later tonight with great expectations, and you are satisfied that today you were able to do the best that you could do. But before we get into our actual program for this evening, I want to take some time to say to all those who are watching us, I know I understand what's happening. To all those who are watching us, just call up your friend, call up your neighbor, tell them advancing the cause is on, and you need to share the live. Just tell your friends and your neighbors and everybody who's watching that they need to share this live stream. They need to share it. And we're not going to be going forward too fast because we want to have all of our viewers who are accustomed to be watching us to be on so that they're not going to be missing anything. I know that from last week to now, we would have had quite a lot of things happening, lots of birthday celebrations. Of course, we had grieving too. Persons are grieving the loss of their loved ones. And of course, we had lots of persons achieving special goals, special tasks that they set themselves. They were able to achieve those. And for that, we want to say to all of you, congratulations to those persons who have achieved higher feats in their lives, whether it's in the form of an examination or it's a promotion or whatever it is. I want to say congratulations to you. To all those persons who would have celebrated their birthdays, happy birthday to you. Whether it's belated or you're celebrating your birthday now, happy birthday to you. I trust that God is going to continue to bless you and that you are going to be enlightened. You're going to be blessed with wisdom and you're going to be blessed with that sense of responsibility, which would enable you to make sound decisions. I would also want to take this time to extend the sincere condolences to all of those persons who would have who have lost loved ones. It's not easy to lose a loved one. And so right off, I want to say condolences, our sincere condolences to MP Natasha Singh Lewis, who lost her husband quite recently. Like I said earlier, it's not easy to lose a loved one, and we share your pain. However, we trust that Almighty God would continue to give you the strength that you need at this time so that you would be able to continue your journey as a mother and now that of a father, playing the role of a father in terms of guiding the children to where they ought to be. And to all those who have lost, we do extend our condolences to you and we pray that God would grant you that kind of comfort as well, so that you would be able to move on from where you're at now. A couple of other things that would have happened. Well, we know, of course, there is the closure of school, which is going to be very soon. Primary schools are going to be closed on Friday, and the secondary schools and the technical institutes, they're going to be closed on, the following Friday. And we want to advise that we ensure that our children are kept engaged. Of course, I don't mean for the entire holiday, but keep them engaged so that they're not going to be led into all sorts of unwanted activities, which would cause harm and discomfort to them. As a matter of fact, we still have COVID. And so I want to advise that you ensure that your children are safe while they're at home during the vacation. And if they have to go anywhere, ensure that you know where they're going and who they're going with, and that there's a particular time frame within which they ought to return home. You see, these times are serious, and we cannot allow, we cannot take chances, and we don't want to take for granted persons when we're sending our children out. So be very mindful of where you're sending your child and who your child is going with. Ensure that from time to time you're able to call and monitor what is happening with your child and whoever the adult is that child, your child or your children, they're going to be out with. So much for that. On our highlights this evening, and before I go into our highlights, I want to encourage you again, share the live. Call up your friends, call up your neighbor, tell them advancing the cause is on. I notice we have Annette there, and we have Nima Flu Bess, and we have Gary, and we have Lennox, I think it is. We have, is it Tracy? Yes, I think we had Tracy there too. But just call everybody up and let them know advancing the cause is on. Advancing the cause is on. And we are willing to, we want to share with you all that has been happening from last Wednesday to now. Most of what has happened, we want to share that with you. And we want to ensure that you get a full picture of all that has transpired, and more so, the heated stuff that we had quite recently. And so on our highlights this evening, the first one is, well, at long last, the Public Procurement Commission would soon be sworn in. And of course, I need to let you know that even while the commission was not sworn in and active, that contracts were being awarded. I am trying to figure out whether this was the right thing to do. But of course, like we all know, we gotta pay some of the boys, and we've got to pay some of the girls, and we've got to pay some of our friends who helped, to cause people to be installed. They've got to do payback time. And so as a result of that, contracts were awarded left, right, and center. We couldn't wait for this commission to be sworn in. And I'm not sure why we had this long delay. But of course, we now have the commission that is going to be sworn in pretty soon. And we're hoping that that commission would be able to function independently. And then, of course, we have a young man there who allegedly threatened to kill the installed president. He has been arrested. His name is Marvin Richmond from Golden Grove. However, we've noticed that in the investigators have said, they've confirmed that this individual was treated on several occasions by a psychiatrist. And so right away, we recognize that this guy is of unsound mind. And so he was uttering words there. But we still wait to see what is going to happen at that. We are awaiting the arrest of Imran. I noticed this evening Imran was offering, I'm not even sure whether it's an apology, something he was offering this afternoon. But that, whatever he was saying there, it doesn't make sense. It's not sincere. Just the same way you were passionate about the things you were saying, I would expect if you were going to offer an apology, you would say your name and stop talking about Gaza and Gaza, whoever you be. And you would say your name and say, I respectfully, or I humbly. This kind of nonsense, we hear these things are coming off too often, and we cannot afford to take these things lightly. If we are going to be uttering words, then we should be responsible with what we say. And if we are not responsible with the things that we are saying, then we should face the consequences. We should face the consequences of our utterances. This is nonsense. Our country, Guyana, is made up of 6 races, and let me add another one, 7 races, which is the mixed race. And if you're going to talk about Black people in that way, then it seems as if you have no respect for Black people, and we've been having too much of that. Too much of that we've been having, and it's time we put a stopping to it. And then as we continue, we have the latest road fatality. One person dead this afternoon on Mandela Avenue. One person died as a result of an accident. Again, folks, again, let me ask you to be very, very cautious, to be careful, to be on the lookout for those who are not looking out for themselves. We cannot continue to be racing the roads. We cannot continue to be responsible when driving down the streets of Georgetown or around Guyana. And so I would want to urge that we be careful, that we look out for those who are not looking out for themselves, and that we continue to do what we ought to do when we are going to be proceeding on the road. And then, of course, we have the man who, well, it was alleged that he murdered the 19-year-old cosmetologist. That guy is now walking a free man. He is now walking a free man. And I don't know. Again, the cry from residents of region number 5, come on, GWI, you got to do something better. If you can't do the job, then go. We cannot continue to have our residents in different parts of this country crying out, talking about the color of the water. 8 hours, they're not having any water. How can we continue to run a country like that? And then you hear all of these glorious talks, all these glorious talks you get about how much money you're saving. You're saving a whole lot of monies, but people can't get water. So what we're really doing, is it a cake shop business you're running? GWI, fix it now. Fix it now. The people in region number 5, they want to have full supply of water. They want to be able to turn on their taps and have water flowing. Do something. And of course, Pulauri Lady gets $200,000 as compensation for her loss yesterday, for what she lost yesterday. And then we have 3 persons being held in Stewartville for trafficking of Venezuelans. 3 persons being held at Stewartville. And then, of course, Michael Morgan was charged with trafficking of cocaine. And so those are our highlights for this evening. But again, folks, let me ask you to share the live. Share the live. We have quite a lot to talk about this evening. So share the live. With me, we have one guest who's going to be joining us this evening. He is no stranger to these kinds of forums. And he's going to be joining us just in a while we're going to go on with this conversation. And of course, we have 2 other guests who are going to be passing through, but when they get on board, I'll introduce them to you. I'll have them on. But for now, we are going to take on screen to join me on the program. We're going to have this young man who is very dynamic, and he is someone who can be deemed a role model. He has served this country so far at his age with distinction. He never stops, and think about himself. He's always there to give and to lend a helping hand. Operator, I'm not sure if you still have him there. Could you bring him on for us? Yes, and while he's coming on, and so we have Mr. Onyx Duncan here with us. Onyx, thanks for being here with us on Advancing the Cause. I am thinking that your mic is not on.
Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
Thank you for having me. It's been a long time, but I'm here and I'm still fighting, like you said.
Good. Well, Onyx, just before we talk about exactly what we want to talk about, I want to share with our viewers and to ask the NDC in Wakenham and the Education Department and everybody else who's responsible to please look into this issue where we have a bus that is supposed to be transporting school children. I've been told that this bus is very selective with the children that they transport to and from school. If we're going to have a bus to transport school children, then we should not be selective. And I'm being told that the bus would pick up pupils and students from Zealandia and Mariah's Pleasure. Those are the people he picks up. And then the people the children who were living at Mariah Joanna and Ferrisburg and Nykodak and those places, they're not being picked up. Those children are not being picked up. So NDC, could you correct this for us? Because these children are our children, and we want our children to be able to attend school and to attend the school on time. Why is it that the bus would not go there to pick up the children? Why is it that the driver of the bus was instructed that only one run he should be making during the day, one run to school and one run from school? This can't be right. We had the David Granger buses there, and they were making several rounds to pick up our school children. Why is it that we are having a particular bus in Wakenham and we're having this kind of confusion? Are we saying that we are having two Guyanas, or are we saying that some are better than some and we can't pick up a certain set of people? This is crazy. Absolutely crazy. So Duncan, let's have your bit on that before we go any further into the conversation.
Well, that's typical the PPPC government, trying to earn political points any way possible. And so if it is just to put one race at a different level to the other, they're going to do it. They're going to find every way to gain points for voters. And we saw yesterday what happened with that person who probably was a PPP supporter. They are not, gaining the type of support they were getting during the Granger administration. She's saying that she never suffered so much. And that is exactly what the PPP is doing. They're making people that used to, go by probably by, $20,000 in a week suffer because they can't earn $20,000 and live on $20,000 in a week. And they're going to find every way, like this bus situation, because it was a David G. Something, they're going to make it a PvP something. They want to find and make a legacy of themselves. And we see that every day with Charles Ramson and these other ministers, but Charles Ramson in particular, because they want to cement a legacy. But you can only cement a legacy if you bring something that is fruitful, that's something that people will like, that people will go after, what people will support. That's the only way that you will cement a legacy in this country or in any country as a matter of fact.
Well, Onyx, we had happening almost a month ago, or it might have been a month ago, the shooting to death of a young 23-year-old man of African descent who hailed from Haslington, young Bacchus. And after 1 month, we still can't hear anything with regards to a charge being laid. I'm seeing here residents talking about this young man. As a matter of fact, he was laid to rest on Sunday last. And we're seeing here emotions, anger, grief, all that you want to label there, all you want to list there, they're all coming out at this time. Yesterday we had a blow up. What is your take on this? Like I said, after 1 month, no charge. And we're still being asked yesterday to trust the process, to have faith. And our report is going to be submitted sometime on Monday. Now, I don't know how we can continue to trust this system when the system is broken from within. I don't understand how we can trust this system. Your take.
Well, you see, MP, from since June 10th, I tried my best to keep away from this matter, because I've said nothing from since June 10th when this guy was shot and killed. Nothing. I've made no attempt to go on social media to speak about it, because I knew exactly what it will come to, right? And that what happened yesterday, I knew it was gonna be that. You know why it was gonna be that? Because this was somebody that was killed by someone who works for the state, a policeman. And we know that every time that tragedies and fatalities like this happen in any country, there must be a representative of the state visiting that family. There was no representative of the state. ropes and bend, the president, nobody reached out to that family. And then we go back to another instance where that family, where the mother of those children were killed, were burnt in that fire. You know, the president never reached in Mocha. He went to the police quarters. He never reached in Mocha. And a lot of people don't know that. You're supposed to reach out to families like that suffer such fatality and such crime and all these things. You never reach there. The president made his way when he heard about the protests in Monrepo. He made his way to Monrepo. He was boots on the ground.
Yep.
Oh, I'm going to compensate, and we need to bring the people that are selling in Monrepo to justice, and everybody needs justice, and you can't have justice if there is injustice one place and justice the other place. He reached there. Then he went on to go to Buxton, and he spoke at Buxton. He spoke to a cousin of the dead man, and the man wasn't having it, and he never reached Golden Grove. What is it that he's afraid of? What is it he is afraid of? The system.
So much for one day, Anna.
Exactly. So I'm going back now to the system. I made a statement yesterday, a public statement, and a lot of people saw that. A lot of people reached out to me. A lot of people saying, oh, this is not a race issue. I wasn't making it a race issue, but it all falls back and ties into that. That is what our system does. There was a process that needed to be followed. Okay, we know that the Police Complaints Authority is working on the case. Commissioner of Police give full assurance. But a man died by a policeman, was shot and killed five times to his body and one to his head, if I could clearly remember. 3 weeks ago, and there is nothing coming out of that as yet. Why does an investigation have to take so long? With so much witness, all these videos on Facebook, all these confessions, right? We are going back to that. So the system is broken. The system is infiltrated. The system is politically motivated, right? And then if you go deeper into this thing, you know that, oh, this person that killed this man has affiliations in the police force. He has a big boy who's a uncle or somebody. The system is broken. If that system was fixed in the first place, or if the state had addressed that issue in the first place and looking to that issue with immediate urgency, we would have not been where we were yesterday. We would not have seen protesting yesterday. We would not have seen rioting and looting and all these things. But the system goes back to the system being broken.
Well, you know, Onyx, I want to join with you in saying the same thing. I want to echo those very thoughts that you're echoing, because you remember I said, how can we trust the system?
Correct.
How can you expect us to trust the system when the system is broken?
Correct.
How can we expect police to investigate police and come up with an honest opinion? Well, I shouldn't say that. What I should say is that certain groups of police, when they carry out certain investigations against certain police, we don't see the things that we ought to see. Because if I'm to reel back to when those policemen in that vehicle, they were chasing that young boy and that young girl, there was no hesitation with regards to charging that young man. No hesitation. The family said they wanted justice. They wanted justice. Nobody spoke about that young man not having a driver's license and all of that. Nobody spoke about the young lady leaving home to attend the school and she was found somewhere else. But everybody wanted justice because the police ran him down and the police pushed him into whatever. But the policeman was charged. But here, after 1 month, we still can't have charges being laid. More than that, we have seen coming from this very system, I don't know what has happened in less than 2 years, where we have seen a drastic turnaround coming from the police force, the Guyana police force. What is really happening? I remember seeing several clips. I'm not sure if the operators got them, but I remember seeing this clip. And if the operator has it all lined up, then we can play that one. The clip where I'm gonna hold for a while until the operator plays the clip where we saw persons trying to overturn. Which one you have there, operator? All right, let's play that one. Let's play this one.
Akiri voice.
Oh, yeah.
What's the man do to police, boy? Turn back, I kill him for them. Turn back. Turn back. Turn back, you go behind this bicycle. You go behind this bicycle. And them fucking man in this guy. So try me.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know, this wasn't the actual one, but that I wanted us to play the one where the installed where the installed president was with a group of people when they attempted to overturn Dr. Karen Cummins' vehicle
At Pegasus.
When they stormed the room that President Granger was in.
Yep.
Which included the Edgel and all of them. And we have seen, like I've been saying, these are signs of the times.
Yeah.
And the things are going to get rough or rougher. Times are going to get even more tough. Because what we are seeing here, and I was referring to the Guyana Police Force, where on those occasions, the first video you saw there is where policemen and women were running for their lives.
Yeah.
You didn't have guns.
I think I lost you there, MP, your volume. All right, so we lost MP there for a second. Yeah, so I guess MP was trying to allude to the fact that protesters were, were trying were trying to overturn the police force at that time with that protest. And you see that if you can allude to the fact we had several protests, big protests in Guyana from March 2020 to now. Right, and you see, I think MP is back.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was saying, we had several big protests from March 2020 to now, and you see the type of influence the police force has on a different set of people, because they were protesting Lusignan and they were protesting Aslington and all these other villages yesterday. And you see where the police uses their force on black people. In Indian neighborhoods and Indian communities, they withdraw their force. And that is bad. It shows that this government that supports a race, a major ethnic race in this country, or is a support base is a major ethnic race in this country, which is Indians, are infiltrated. And they're corrupt, and that is bad. You have a president, because a guy said, a citizen, a villager of that community said, "Oh yeah, I'll get visitors," and the president responds, "Who's the man? Who's the man? He got to be a clown." That is not a president. That is a president, or that is a person who has the mindset of someone who is emotionally distressed. That is somebody who has the mindset of someone who is emotionally distressed. That person was just asking a question, or was just alluding to the fact that, oh yeah, I'll get visitors when there's a big issue. All the time he wasn't visited, but he's there now.
Well, Onyx, you brought that out before I did, because I was going to go to the next part, which where I was talking about, and of course we have to come back to this shooting incident and the protest, where we're having some very bold and daring utterances coming
Yeah.
from persons who, well, we shouldn't say we expect them to be respectful, but we expect that when you hold a certain
Certain
position,
office.
that
Yes.
you are going to speak, to think carefully before you speak.
Hmm.
And so the disrespect continues,
Correct.
and the distasteful utterances that we heard coming from a man who's squatting in the highest office in this
Office.
land.
Hmm.
You calling people a joker. You know,
He made a threat openly, and he doesn't know that. You know who I is? You know who I is? That's a threat. That's a threat to that man's life. So that means that man needs to be afraid of what's going to happen next to him.
operator, I'm not sure what is happening with us there. Yes, I think we are back now. I'm not sure. Are we there? Okay, good. So, and yes, of course, you know, the trenches and the toads and everybody else, they're trying to infiltrate our program and
Let them
creating
come.
all sorts of nonsense. But we will continue. We will continue to do what we have to do. And yes, Marcel Williams, good night to you, and thank you for watching us. Yes, as we were saying, the kind of utterances we heard coming from this guy. Gosh, you know, I have to reflect on what transpired when President Granger was there at the Pegasus Hotel. When they stormed that building and they started behaving, he could have said then to his guards, arrest them.
Arrest them.
He could have uttered the words, they don't know who they're playing with, because I am
Exactly.
a trained Ghana Defense Force
Military.
officer.
Yeah.
But you know what? He just stood at the podium, he X his legs, and he
You have
just
to do
stood
with
there and he
decorum.
watched them
You
perform.
have to do with decorum. That's something that
He
they
said
don't have.
to the guards or policemen who were there to take these people away, he watched
Correct.
them. And when they were finished, he continued to do
Continue.
what they were doing, what he was doing.
Correct.
I'm not sure. Have you ever heard any other president in
Afterwards of
Star
that.
or not across the Caribbean behaving this way?
Well,
But you know
well,
what?
Donald Trump, he might probably is taking pages from Donald Trump's
What we're
book.
seeing here is the real installed president.
Hmm. Hmm.
In his full glory. In his full glory. And mind you, these kinds of utterances, they don't just come like that, you know. These, when we hear people speak sometimes, or most times, it is what is inside of them that is coming out.
Exactly.
And I am not sure whether this guy understands that he's an installed president. I'm not sure whether he understands that. Because if he did, we wouldn't have these kinds of outbursts coming from him. And it's not the first time. We've seen ministers within his government doing the same thing. We have heard from other presidents within the PPP doing the same thing, other ministers within the PPP government doing the same thing prior to 2015. So this is all part of them. This is part of their culture. And that's the way they behave. And we have got to denounce this. We have got to denounce these kinds of behavior. We cannot have persons holding high office, especially when they're squatting and behaving in these kinds of manners. We cannot tolerate it, and we will not tolerate it. Your take on that, Onyx?
The thing is, like you said, it's within their culture. They have their meetings at Freedom House, and They discuss how they want to go about the day. They discuss how they want to address people. They discuss how they want to say things to people, and then in the most condescending way. That's how they behave. That's how they behave, like hooligans, right? And like
All
we
right,
allude to
folks.
the fact.
This is what Onyx, just hold for a while. I think we're gonna have to take a break for about 5 minutes.
The technical issue.
We're getting a kind of feedback in studio, and I'm not sure what is causing that. What is causing that feedback? Operator, let's have an ad or let's have a video running while we try to sort this out. I'm not sure what is causing that.
And now, here is Coretta McDonald, Member of Parliament and host of Advancing the Cause. And now, here is Coretta McDonald, Member of Parliament and host of Advancing the Cause.
Yes, we're gonna have Onyx back in studio with us. Yes, Onyx, I'm not sure what is causing some of the feedback that we're having. However, like we were saying earlier, these kinds of behaviors, we're not going to tolerate them. None whatsoever, we're not going to tolerate. Especially when you're holding high office, we're not going to tolerate those kinds of behavior. And again, we want to find out. And these are the questions that we are not having. Open arrest, close arrest. What does that mean? What definition do we have for open arrest, close arrest? When somebody is on the close arrest, what is it? When somebody is on the open arrest, what is it? And you know, if these kinds of information were related or disseminated, then we wouldn't have the kinds of things that we had yesterday.
Correct.
And I'm wondering, why is the police so tight-lipped on all of these things?
No statement, nothing.
Why the lies? Huh?
My issue about that, MP, is that they're saying that this media agency would have dispelled incorrect information or false information. But they had 12 hours to say, well, or the Guyana Police Force and Stan Gavaya and his crew had 12 hours to say, well, this is false. No statement from the Guyana Police Force. No statement from the Ministry of Home Affairs. Nothing. Until that protest happened. Then they're coming out to say, oh, this was false information. Newsroom is spreading. This is false information. This is da-da-da-da-da. We have a system that is broken and needs to be fixed, and nobody's seeing that. Nobody's seeing that. They're fixing it at the moment and leaves it to go back to its original state, the deteriorating state. That is my issue. Why is Stan Gavaya getting paid so much money? Why is these people getting paid so much money to do nothing? Right? It's idiotic.
Stan Gavaya, good night to you, my dear, and to your colleagues there, and we want you to fix it. You need to do the damage control when you see
Correct.
things are happening, or as a matter of fact, you don't need to do damage control. You should be saying what needs to be said. But
Correct.
a little more on this whole issue. Why is this investigation taking so long? Why? Who are the persons on this panel, this independent committee that we're talking about? Who are the persons? And then after this investigation, what? What happens after this investigation? Do we have to wait for another person to review it? Does it have to go now to the DPP? Well, when you talk about DPP, that's another
That's a different situation.
story. That's a different thing. Where do we go after this investigation? What happens next? Is this young man going to be charged? Do we have to have the DPP reviewing this file and then we'll come up to say,
we're having that issue again. But MP, you see, even before this, I had no idea that there was a police complaints authority. I had no idea that there was that there installed for people to be investigated if you're part of the police force. So I don't know who are these persons. Who are these persons sitting on that panel? These persons have to be private investigators that are hired by the state, that are not affiliated with Guyana and Guyanese politics and all these different things, because they can't investigate themselves, like the president rightfully said. You can't investigate a body that is doing wrong to yourself. So who are these persons? We want to know who are these persons. You don't have to give us name, but you just have to tell us, well, okay, these persons are selected few from the Caribbean community or from Barbados, from Trinidad, and they're put together there to investigate matters of such.
And so while all of this is happening, we saw the mother of the detained cop moving to the High Court, over her son's unlawful detention, which is fair. She has a right. She has a right to do that. And in the midst of all of that, we have the mischief makers. And so we saw the mischief makers again with no proper investigative work, again by journalists. They shoot up there that Hughes, Fields, and Stobie's law firm, they are representing the girl, an attorney from there representing the case, and all these kinds of confusion we're trying to throw into this pot when we already have confusion. And I want to say to the president of the Guyana Press Association, I figure you might need to have a crash course done with some of these media houses, some of the persons who represent these media houses, because we cannot continue to have journalists issuing wrong statements and hyping people up for no reason at all. Yesterday could have been such a tragedy. Yesterday, but we're gonna get a little more into yesterday. But just to let everyone there know that Miss Kezia Williams, I think is her name, Attorney Williams, she no longer works with Hughes, Fields and Stobie's law firm. She has left that firm for 2 years now, and so we have to be a little more careful with our reporting. But we have to dissect this visit by the president a little more. Here we have people who were angered, people whose hearts are broken because a loved one was killed by the police.
Yep.
We cannot hear up to now any definitive reason for the shooting to death of this young man. At one time, you heard the young man was shot because he attempted to sell a firearm, a gun, to a policeman. Now, any nursery school child would tell you, Onyx, and viewers out there, any nursery school child would tell you that if you want to catch a thief, you got to set the trap. And when you set the trap, you got to lock him in the trap.
Correct.
Don't kill him. Because
or you killing him, you have to get information out of him.
So why is it that you attempted to perform this sting operation? Why did you want to perform this sting operation? We cannot see up to now a gun that they said this young man was going to sell.
They
We
said
can't
it.
see a
They
gun
said
up to
they have
now.
the gun. They found the gun, but we can't see it.
We can't see a gun up to now. And I noticed people being looking entrenched all over the place for some gun.
Yeah.
The other thing is, you said this young man opened fire on the police. The postmortem showed that this young man, I think he got 6 or 5 bullets in his back and
one in
one
his
to
head.
his chest or his head or somewhere there. Now, if this policeman opened fire and you returned, it means that this young man was he probably
Facing
related to Chuck Norris or someone of them. So he was having all of these
Steven
back
Seagal. Steven Seagal.
and well, Steven Seagal. He was doing back steps and back flicks, and he was shooting at you all the time.
Correct. Correct.
So while he was doing these back steps, you managed to shoot him in his chest, I think. And maybe when he felt that one or wherever, when he felt that one, he started running. So he was backing you now, and he got all those other shots in his back.
Chest shot and run.
I don't understand. The puzzle is not fixing. And the Guyana police force would have to come out to tell this nation what transpired. As a matter of fact, the other people there, the other parties, the others who were part of that party, you have to hold them too. You can't hold one person, you got to hold the others. And then we heard another part of this story which spoke about this young man knowing the policeman. They had some sort of confrontation over a young lady, and then all kinds of things happen. I mean, this is a human life. This is a human being. And I don't know if people think that you can go borrow a life, so it's all right for you to take one. Now, here we have parents losing their child. A young boy, an infant, 3 years old, is left to live the rest of his life without his father.
Yep.
Sisters have lost a brother. Brothers have lost a brother. A community has lost a son. But we want to tell people that they don't need to protest. They don't need to be angry. They don't need to get upset. They don't need to react. Now, mind you, I am not saying that what happened yesterday was the right thing. As a matter of fact, it was the right thing for the people to have done, to protest. But in terms of the incidents that occurred at Mon Repose, the people were there doing their thing peacefully. As a matter of fact, they passed 2 sets of police and they did not retaliate against those police.
Correct.
But you know what happened there. We know what happened there. Others were allowed to infiltrate the people's protest and created havoc. And so I want to lay the blame squarely at the feet of the Guyana police force. Now, mind you, this protest started, I think, since 6 o'clock yesterday morning. And from the time I started watching this thing, I saw the people calling there for the commissioner of police acting.
Yep.
Now, he went there before. Why is it that he couldn't find his way up there when the people were calling for him? And I'm sure if that was done, Onyx, you know what the results would have been.
And bear in mind, they were calling for him, and I was in town around probably 8:30, and I saw him heading into Ivlery. So he had no problem or no issue or whatever with those people. He didn't have them on his mind. He was doing something else.
And I'm sure all the radio messages were coming in to say what was happening.
Yes.
And so the police went there, and rather than being good citizens who are there to protect and serve, they aggravated the people.
Exactly.
And it did not stop with when they started shooting at Buxton and so on. It did not stop there.
Went into
they
the night.
waited until night fell, and then they went there to Golden Grove and Haslington and so on to harass the people. Now, this cannot be right. This cannot be right. While we are saying that the activities that occurred in Mon Repose, that they are wrong, we must also condemn the actions of the police.
Police. Yeah.
We must condemn the actions of the police. Two wrongs don't make a right. And the police, on one hand, you're talking about building alliance with the community, and that they, with the same breath, you're harassing and you're threatening and you're shooting at the people. Come on.
And not only that, they're shooting at their own people, because I saw a Facebook post by a police. She was off duty and said she was in a shop with her, or probably her mother sells in Golden Grove or whatever. She was in that shop, and the police came and said, yeah, go home and start shooting up pellets and rubber bullets in that shop. She is an off-duty police. So they're not only arming people, they're arming their own people.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy the way things are happening. And these are the times of crisis that we're in. How do we get out of this? What do we do? I guess we have to mobilize ourselves in groups in our villages and look out for each other. That's what we have to do. Because when the police cannot protect us, I guess we are going to have to protect ourselves. People will have to feel safe. You know, we have all these incidences happening. And I can go back to just the other day on the Essequibo coast, the Orange Boston issue, same thing.
That's the same thing. That's the same thing. What came out of that? Nothing.
We're still waiting.
That's a long investigation process.
And so people are fearful that with all of these investigations that are being promised to us, that nothing will happen. Nothing. If we go to the Henry Boys and Harish Singh, same very thing.
Same thing.
How can we trust the system when we can get nowhere? How do you ask us to trust you when we get absolutely nowhere? And so these are the things that are causing persons, citizens across this country to have no faith in the police. We cannot have faith in the police when the police themselves are allowing us not to have faith in them. Onyx, the visit of the president, this visit by the installed president is a worrying thing. Here is it, we have the president, the installed president of this country, preaching a one Guyana policy, a one Guyana theme, but yet we're seeing the president stopping at Monrepos, and he could not have gone to Golden Grove. Up to a day like today, the president has not reached out to the sorrowing family of this young man.
But I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say this, MP. If it wasn't for that issue in Monrepo, that would have been the only statement that we would have saw yesterday from the president. He would have not been there in Monrepo. He would have not been on the road. He would have not been in Buxton, anywhere. And I'm telling you this from my heart. I know this. That statement would have been the only statement, and he would have gone back to business as usual. That is exactly how he is. He's telling the people that, oh, I was out of the country and I just come back last night. You are the president of this country. You are installed, rather matter of fact. So that means you want to try to show up yourself, to show these people that, hey, I am supposed to be in this office. You are the president. You're supposed to know what are the current affairs that is happening in the country. If something is happening in the United States and the president of the United States is in Africa, you better believe it, Air Force One will be back in the United States. This is not business as usual. We have to work.
We have seen this on several instances where when there are issues in certain areas, we see government officials flocking those areas. And in other areas, we don't see the same thing. And so it can't be one Guyana. It cannot be one Guyana. And we cannot continue as if it's business as usual. It's not business as usual. Again, let me say it to all our viewers who are watching this program and those who will watch us after, that it's okay to protest. But when we are going to protest, we must ensure that our charges who are with us, that they do what they have to do in a peaceful and respectable manner. But if you're aggravated, then things are going to happen.
Exactly.
And if we're going to have police lining the streets, police on the sidewalk, wherever we're going to have policemen, then they should be able to maintain law and order. And for those people who like to come into protest to create havoc, we have to be able to pick them out one by one.
Yeah.
We have to be able to identify them, because we cannot allow persons to distract us from what we are setting out to do. And so for those persons whose properties were destroyed, and those who were robbed, and those who were beaten, it's sad, and we're sorry that this has happened. But I want to say to us, we should not be doing these kinds of things. We should not allow these things to happen. And so to Pulauri lady, I'm happy that you were compensated. And for those other persons whose properties were destroyed, you are going to get your bit of compensation. But while I'm speaking about that, I'm worried about who's compensating public servants and teachers. Who's compensating them? Nobody is compensating them, even at this time. Nobody whatsoever is compensating them. And this is ridiculous. It is ridiculous that we have nobody compensating these folks at this time. Your take, Onyx?
Well, I'm happy that Polari lady got her money. She wanted 3 million, but she fell short of that 3 million. But I'm persons. I think what had really transpired yesterday was supposed to be a protest whereby persons was going to go to Georgetown or come to Georgetown to see the Commission of Police, because they wanted the Commission of Police. That is who they wanted. They didn't want the people in Luzignan, or they didn't want the people in Monrepo and all these other places. They wanted the Commission of Police, right? So I guess their actions didn't mean harm, but in what they were doing, it was harmful because persons were unable to get to work and all these different things. But if you are taking that into consideration and taking the conclusion of that protest into consideration, seeing beforehand what will happen, and went to the people, meet the people halfway, meet the people at Golden Grove, we wouldn't have had what we had yesterday.
And I so agree with you. I so agree with you. And you know, the thing is, when people feel that they're not being heard or they're not being attended to, especially when they're hurting, the slightest of thing will trigger them.
Yep.
The slightest of a flick will trigger them. And so we've got to be able to understand these things. I mean, you don't have to go to the university to know these things. We've got to be able to understand these things.
Well, it clearly shows that you probably need to go to the university to understand these things sometimes, because our president didn't went to any university.
Well, that's another part of this story. But I'm hoping that on Monday, we are being told that on Monday, this report is going to be completed. And I'm hoping that when this report is completed, that the nation would know, and people everywhere would understand. Guyanese across the diaspora, they're going to have a full view of what this report entails, because you know, persons are sitting on the edge.
Yep.
They're sitting on the edge. And they don't trust the system. And so if we want to have people work with us, then we've got to be able to build that kind of trust in them. We've got to be able to build that kind of trust. And so let's await that report. But while we await that report, I know that the mothers and other persons in the diaspora, the mothers in Golden Grove and so on, they are hurting, and they're going to continue to voice their hurt. They're going to continue to express themselves. As a matter of fact, that is one way of being able to start the healing process, by getting this anger out of you. And so when the people are out there protesting, I hope that the police would just stand by very peacefully and allow the people to do what they have to do. As long as they're not blocking the roads, you allow the people to protest and see what they have to see. I mean, we live in a democratic country. That's what we were told. And
That's what we said yesterday too.
surprisingly, we are hearing nothing from some people in some different corners. Absolutely nothing we're getting from them.
The
And
Ethnic Relations Commission and all these other people.
worrying. This is what is worrying. I have not heard anything coming from the Ethnic Relations Commission with regards to Mr. Gaza. Nothing. But Mr. Gaza decided this evening that he's going to offer an apology or a apology, whatever, because that's not an apology. And these are the things, we saw Annette Ferguson, we saw Sherrod Duncan, we saw so many other persons being pulled in by the cyber unit. But we've not heard anything about Gaza's yet, Imran.
They also, just to add, they also went out on a limb and said that Sherrod instigated the protests and the riots. On live, Sherrod was covering the protest live for 2 hours or so. And they said that openly.
And so these are the kinds of things that would cause people not to want to trust this system. But like I said, viewers, we await the report that is going to be out on Monday. And then we probably have to further wait to hear whether that report has got to go to 5, 6, or 7 different sets of persons to be reviewed before something could happen. And while all of that is happening, the hurt and the heartbreak and everything else, it's getting deeper. Viewers, it's always a pleasure being here with you. Always, always a pleasure being here with you. But these are issues that we have to share. We have to share them with you. We have to let you understand what is happening here, what is happening in this country. When we talk about the return of democracy and transparency and all the C's that we talk about, this is what we're getting for the democracy that we talk about. This is what we get for good governance. This is what we get when a group of people are installed.
Yep.
When people are installed, this is the kind of results that we get. And so I'm hoping that we are keeping our ears and our eyes and everything else out there and be alert. Because I can tell you, under the coalition government, the people of this country had no reasons to be afraid. The people of this country under the coalition government, they had every right to protest. The people of this country, they had built such a relationship with the police that
no fear, water cannons, nothing.
They were turning in persons who were going in contrary to the law. Public-spirited citizens were turning them in. But what we're having now, if you notice, we've got plenty illegal guns on the streets.
Who's supplying them?
Well, that's another question. And that is why they should have kept Mr. Bacchus alive.
So, because I forgot to mention that part, MP. So they're always targeting the smaller fishes, and the bigger fishes survive. The bigger fishes are still out there. So whosoever allegedly is supplying Mr. Bacchus, or who had been supplying Mr. Bacchus with the guns to sell, we don't know. And they're still out there. So there's going to be another person supplying.
Yep. And so that's where we want to go. We always try to, the PPP always try to make people make it sound as if they're the saints and that everyone else is stupid and you don't understand the things. But, gone are those days. If you notice what is happening now, yesterday we saw so many footages of what transpired because everybody got a cell phone now. Everybody got their data and everybody is putting out there, going live with what is happening. And folks, I want to encourage you and I want to say to you, to implore upon you, whenever you see these things are happening, make sure you go live so that the police will not be able to refute what you're saying. And for them to say to us, it is your word against my word, because we'll have the evidence to show. At this time, we would want to say, tata bye-bye to you. It was good being here with you, but we have to continue to hold fast. We have to continue to hold hands. We have to continue to work as good Guyanese citizens, because all of us have got our own unique way of doing things, and we all have an input to make in the development of this country.
Exactly.
This country will go nowhere if we continue to divide this country along racial lines. We have a motto that says, one people, one nation, one destiny. And if we want to continue to hold on to that motto, then we've got to work with everybody. We have to work with everybody, regardless of whether people support you or not. You have to work with them. You decided that you wanted to be installed. You're there. Work with everybody. Next, we'll take your closing remarks before we wrap.
Well, I'm going to go back to something I said in my statement yesterday about the issue, because it all falls back to the system. And we as political leaders and we as future leaders in Guyana must collectively acknowledge our influence and take responsibility for the things that would have happened in the past. For the things that would have happened in the past, and reflect on that, because it is giving us, or it is making an impact on our current status right now. It's making an impact on our current state of affairs currently. And we must commit to creating a future steeped in justice. We must commit to create a future that is steeped in justice, because these injustices, like we're seeing for Orange Batson and Quindon Baxter and all these other people, you know, it's really unfair towards them. It's really unfair, and it will never end if we don't do that. It will never end. So we have to use this moment here to accelerate our nation cause, or a long journey towards justice, and reflect on those instances that we had in the past, and work on developing a country that we all long for. And like you clearly said, the perfect union, our one people, one nation, one destiny. And if we don't do that, we will go nowhere. This country will continue to see protests, actions, violence, all these different sort of things. Racism, it will flourish. We have to accept our influence as political leaders. That's all I have to say for now.
Well, Onyx, I want to thank you so much for being on Advancing the Cause this evening. Like everything else, I want to say to you, be good Guyanese citizens. Remember, COVID is up and around, and so I expect you to stay safe. Wear your mask, sanitize as often as possible, stay away from large crowds. Be good. Encourage others to be careful too. And if you have to be out there, whether you're out there protesting or not, wear your mask. And encourage road users too to be careful on the roadways. Do take care. We'll see you again next week at the same time for more on Advancing the Cause. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you for watching our program. See you right back here, same place, same time. And remember, hold the line of battle, comrades. Our victory is sure.